Buenas, buenas. Welcome to Music Marketing TV, and welcome to the Yuhi Users Group live stream for FM Synthesis. I'm Kevin Ochoa, and I'll be your host today. Now, I'm going to wait just a few more minutes, probably 4 or 5 minutes, for everyone to come and get situated into the live stream. So while we're here waiting, let me know what country you guys are coming from, and also let me know of any questions you guys might have, so I can answer them later during the Q&A portion of the video. And I hope you guys are having a lovely morning or afternoon if you're in Europe. I'm going to go update the URL to our Facebook group. If you guys haven't joined our Facebook group, it's Yuhi Users and Sound Designers Group on Facebook. And I'll link the group to this live stream as well. It's going to be in the chat. All right, we have 6 viewers. Hey, what's up, Lucas? Yeah, we're going to start at 11:10 with the class. Most of these classes, I'm waiting 10 minutes after 11 o'clock so everyone gets situated. Simply because some people forgot about the live stream. Some people have problems with it as well. Because sometimes you will go on to YouTube and you'll be a few minutes behind the live stream. So then you try to refresh the screen and put yourself up to date with the latest time. And I don't know if you ever seen a live stream on your computer, then gone to your phone. Actually, cell phones are provide you the most up to date version of the live stream. Like it's like 30 seconds ahead than the web version. It's very interesting. But yeah, that's the thing that you have to deal with. Okay. All right, let's get started with this. So, welcome to the stream. We are covering FM synthesis inside Yuhi plugins today. Like I mentioned, we are going to be covering Zebra, Bazzill, especially Bazzill because Bazzill, I need to pronounce it properly, Bazzill. It's a very underrated synthesizer and it has so many modulation sources. It's crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and cover them. But before we do that, I need to cover the very basics of FM so I can get some of you guys who are newer to FM synthesis to understand the way it works. Before we go on, though, we're going to have more live streams. So next week, we'll have the wavetable synthesis live stream. I mean, not next week, but June 4th, we will have the wavetable synthesis live stream. June 11th will be Yuhi Effects. So again, we'll be hosting the classes at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what is FM? FM synthesis is frequency modulation synthesis. In the real physical world, in the real physical world, you have modules. So you have big modular systems that you can plug in one oscillator to another oscillator's pitch and modulate that, or modulate the frequency. However, in the digital realm, you can't really do this, so we do this similar type of effect via phase modulation. So FM synthesis in the digital realm is kind of a bit of a misnomer. We're also going to cover a little bit about the history of synths. We did cover this last week, but I just want to freshen up your minds a little bit. And we're also going to cover the tools, filters, and modulators that we need to create FM patches. And we're going to do programming for first timers. Of course, we're going to make electric pianos because it's such a classic sound of FM. And then we're going to move into more advanced ideas, and we're going to make grooves inside Bazzill because it has a really cool sequencer. Okay. So, why does this say subtractive synthesis? This should say it's FM. Regardless, think about FM synthesis as a way of modulating frequencies by other frequencies, as I mentioned this earlier. Now, instead of think about it too complexly, think about it in a very simple form. When you're playing a guitar, for example, you change the tension on the string and you change the pitch of it, right? So you might clamp onto it, you might move it a little bit to create a pitch bend. In the synthesizer realm, we have a pitch wheel that allows us to change the pitch of a synthesizer. Now, the way I like to think about FM synthesis is as it being a pitch wheel that is endless and can have an infinity amount of speed added to it. So here's an FM knob and a car wheel. So think about here's a pitch wheel, and here's a car wheel. So think about FM as a pitch wheel, but with the abilities of a car where it can speed up faster and faster and faster, and eventually create a new tone. So here are some of the different tools that we use in FM synthesis. Again, I don't know why this says subtractive. It should say FM. We have oscillators and operators. In operators, we typically control either hertz or frequency. We can divide and multiply frequencies. We can also change the shapes of our oscillators via different editors, whether it is additive synthesis. In the case of Sytrus, you can use additive synthesis to create waveforms. Or in the case of Bazzill, you can use frequency or phase distortion. Also, you can FM the oscillator itself. You can also use fractalize and other tricks inside the oscillator itself. Modulators that are really common in FM synthesizers are operator matrices. So here you're able to modulate, let's say, operator 2 by operator 1, operator 3 by operator 4, and so on and so forth. And then you can drag them into filters and send those to your output over here. And in the case of Bazzill, you can use LFOs, inverters, rectifiers, quantizers, lag generators, and a crazy amount of modulators, which we will cover today. I also forgot to add here the step sequencer, which is a very important modulator that can be used to send pitch information or pretty much any information, but you can compartmentalize each section of the sequencer to do a different thing, which is very, very cool. We also have filters, and in the case of Bazzill, because it has a phase distortion, you can also consider this kind of like a filter. And we have multiple filters inside Bazzill where you can do you can change the cables on them. You can send them back and forth between each other. You can even use the filter to go back and modulate like phase distortion, for example, which is very, very cool. In the case of Zebra, we have quite a different workflow. So instead of being all cables everywhere style, like Bazzill, you're kind of create a chain of effects. And you can kind of have some modular effects with FM. However, it's a little bit more straightforward with Zebra. So, for example, here we have an VCF, and we have a FM oscillator, which I'll show you guys later. Can use the filter beforehand or a oscillator beforehand to modulate it, and we also have cone filters and whatnot. So, again, the brief history about synthesis in the late 1800s, we had the first synthesizer, and the Telharmonium by Tadeusz Cahill was kind of like an additive synthesizer, so it's very different to what we are covering today. But in the first eras of synth creation, which was like the first 70 years, I consider, you had different schools of thought, and you had modulator synthesis, you had subtractive synthesis, FM as well. And FM didn't really become big until the 1980s, when the DX7 came out, because it made it really easy to patch and affordable. Because before, as you saw here, the synthesizers were just so huge and too of a massive bulk of materials to create, so you couldn't mass produce this, so people couldn't really play this at home. But with the DX7, you're able to do that and also take it on stage with you. However, it was very complex of a machine to create patches out of. So a lot of people just use the presets, which became very, very famous, like the electric piano and all those type of shiny, shimmery sounds. Okay, so now let's get into the DAW, which is FL Studio. And to me, the easiest way to explain FM is by using Sytrus. So Sytrus is one of the earliest synths from ImageLine. And let me clone this guy and init this preset. So when you first load up Sytrus, you only get a sine wave. Now, to actually get something interesting out of it, you gotta modulate it by something else, by another operator. As you can see here in this tiny little frequency spectrum, it's creating overtones. So let me pull up the wave candy, which is a very fantastic analyzer from ImageLine. And I can see that I have created overtones by a modulation. Now, operators typically have hertz or dividers like this, or multipliers, to change the pitch of an operator. So if I solve the first operator, you can see that the multiplier essentially sends your stuff up an octave. You could also do it by fewer notes. And you can typically control the pitch range effects of this on other operators by using something like a volume, or creating your modulation on the matrix to be up to a certain point. That way, if you're FMing one sound by another, you aren't creating as drastic as an effect. Now let me reset this again. Now remember how I mentioned the pitch wheel? Well, let me show you guys exactly what I mean. So you could probably do this by hand on a pitch wheel, right? Where you're just grabbing the oscillator and changing the pitch of it. And I can do the same thing with here. Just by adding something that's in the low frequency oscillator range. However, if I wanted to create more interesting timbres, I'd have to speed this up massively. Now the problem with this is that you were creating very unharmonic tones. However, if we use something like the operator over here, the multiplier, we can create very harmonic tones. So these have a little bit more sense to our ears. Whereas creating so many harmonic timbres via LFOs, it's kind of hectic. So that's basically how you modulate one operator by another. Now there's a lot of other things you can do to modulate one operator by another. You can put a filter envelope on things. You can put a volume envelope. You can pitch modulate the oscillator that is modulating your main output oscillator, which is a little bit more complex, but I think this is the most simplest way to put it. Now, when we go to a synthesizer like Bazzill, you have basically everything that I showed you times 4 in one page. which makes it kind of scary at first. However, after this live stream, I hope you guys will understand it much better and feel much more comfortable creating patches here. So the benefits here is that you can pretty much modulate everything around in one page, whereas with Sytrus, you have to do kind of a lot of digging around inside of these submenus, and it can become unmusical sometimes. So you see when I am going to go create envelopes and stuff, I have to kind of use my mouse and dig into these smaller subsections. Whereas with Bazzill, I can do this pretty much all on one screen. And I don't really have to worry about, losing my workflow or doing something that's unintuitive, because it's all pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's initialize this patch. And let's break down how Bazzill signal flow works. So we have our oscillators here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, if you were to remove that cable, you can't hear any audio because this is essentially a modular module. So you're going to grab this guy and put it to your output or one of your filters or one of our multiplexes, which are kind of like a little mixer that can do more tricks than a regular mixer, which I'll show you guys later. For now, let's go to the filter. Now, you can't hear anything coming from the filter because we need to send the output of one of the filter types into the output. So now we can hear that sine wave. And if I go back to Bazzill, if I engage the phase distortion, I can turn that sine wave into a saw wave. Very cool. And let me clarify this. This is very cool for a FM oscillator because, for example, with Sytrus, I can't really do that. If I go back to my one operator, the only type of modulation I can have on it is coming from an external source, not really from itself, from the sound creation itself. So if I wanted to create a different waveform, I can't really move these around in real time. If I right click, I can't really edit any of these things. So that's very typical of FM synths, that once you set an operator, you can't really edit it any further, at least in real time. Okay, and then, but still, you have a plethora of modulation types within the oscillator itself. You have that phase distortion, you can FM it by itself. Let me put the saw back in. How cool is that? And then we have, of course, changing of the tuning. And I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into every one of these guys after I cover the signal flow. So we have the oscillator going to filter, now to the outputs. Now let's engage a modulator. So let's grab something like an LFO and tell it to modulate the FM. In this case, he calls it correctly as it should be for phase modulation. So we're going to choose fine. You can see that the frequency modulation is very subtle. Now I'm going to go ahead and change the setting to medium. And now the modulation is a little bit more pronounced. If I select coarse, very more pronounced. It's much more pronounced than before. If I choose linear, the modulation will be a little bit different. If I use a oscillator that's exactly, or an LFO that's exactly the same, it will just put push up the FM, whereas over here, the FM goes all the way down and back up. Now, just like I use a LFO to modulate the FM on oscillator 1, I can use another oscillator to modulate that. So I'm going to use oscillator 2 to modulate the FM on the first oscillator. Now I can use my tune knob to change the semitones I'm in. So I'm going to go to undertone and pitch my second oscillator down. So now it sounds a little bit more like a LFO because it's so slowed down. Now what I'm going to do is select an envelope and use that to modulate the actual pitch of my second oscillator. I'll tune this a little bit higher though, tune it to 14. And if I FM this a bit, FM the oscillator 1 by oscillator 2 a bit louder, we get a much more modulation. We get a little bit of a deeper patch. So as you guys can see, even with just 4 cables, we can get much more complex tones than we could before. Let's go ahead and pitch up the oscillator 1 by a couple of semitones, actually 12. There we go. If we change the PM course, like I said, to inverted or to linear, choose linear 1. We get a completely different sound coming out of the oscillator 1. We can do the opposite by engaging the attack of the oscillator of the envelope. So even with just the envelope and 2 oscillators, we can create quite a complex sound. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the sequencer because that's it's really cool. So let's reset this patch. And let's send our output to filter and use the 24 dB per octave. Okay. And now I'm going to engage the sequencer. No, I'm going to grab the 8th step and drag that out to my pitch. I'm going to set this to 50 semitones. And now we're rolling through the sequence right here. My time base is right here, so I can multiply this. Right now you're not hearing a difference because we need to pitch up 1 note. So I'm going to pitch up this last note. And of course we got to engage the oscillator tuning right here. So it's important to note over here that we gotta, let's say if we want 1 semitone to go higher in the sequence, we gotta set this number to be twice the number of our semitones. So if I wanted to go up 3 semitones, I gotta go 6 up. And you can use your mouse wheel to set this up. It's a lot easier. Now if I wanted to come over here and put this 7 semitones higher, I can set this to 14. If I wanted the first step to be an octave higher, I send it up 24. Now this second range right here, I'm going to use it to modulate the envelopes. So I'm going to set it to basically anything. I'm going to send it to the filter right now. Actually, let's just use one section right here. And I'm going to go to my envelope and set this to take in modulation mapping 2. I'm going to send this to my volume right here. Now I'm going to reduce the volume of the oscillator 1 and modulate by envelope 2. Oops. Oh, that's why it wasn't working. I was using the wrong cable. Okay. Okay, let's use the filter cutoff all the way. And let's set this to key follow. And let's do something interesting that we can't really do with many other things, which is using this fractalize modulation right here. So the fractalizer kind of does sync, oscillator sync, or PWM, but it can do it negatively as well. So we're gonna get this really cool effect where the oscillator sync is going backwards. So let's grab an LFO, send it to our fractalize. Actually, let's take that off. Let me just show you what the fractalize does by itself. Let's grab that second oscillator. And speed it up now. Of course, I gotta turn it on first. So let me choose a slower LFO to modulate that. So take a close look at the waveform right here. It's actually moving backwards, which is very interesting. Let me put the output directly to the out instead of through the filter. It's very, very interesting. Now I'm going to use that this through the filter, and instead of setting the output of that filter, we're going to send it to the multiplex. From that multiplex, we're going to use the output, send it to the main out. Now I'm going to grab the LFO2, send it to the mod right here, and I'm going to grab a different tone as well. I'm going to choose oscillator 3, and I'm going to pitch it up 1 octave. I'm going to modulate that by our pitch, by the sequencer. I'm going to send the volume of that to my multiplex. And now, because I have the level of the low pass filter right here, and the level of the oscillator 3, I'm going to modulate between both of these using the LFO. Let me take off this. So we have a little bit more of a sine tonality coming out of oscillator 1, whereas oscillator 3 is sounds a bit different. So we're basically matching different oscillators, different sounds. In this case, a filter, which has the inputs of the oscillator 1 and oscillator 3, loading them into multiplex and modulating between both signals. Now, we could get even more complex with this if we set these to around 50% and bring in a third oscillator into our section right here. Now, instead of sending it to the oscillator, I'm going to send it to the second cutoff. And this, I'm going to set it to be a low pass. Or let's try band pass this time. Send it here, but send the cutoff to be quite low. And again, I'm going to grab the sequencer, send this to the modulate the pitch. I'm also going to send it to modulate the FM. So we're going to get more FM coming out of here. And now this multiplex is going to serve as a mix between different sound sources. And also take into consideration that we're using this LFO. To modulate between our signals. So if we actually set this fast enough, we can do some sort of amplitude modulation. Set it even faster. Let's set this to tempo sync. Let's use 32. Let's go a little bit slower to 1/8. Now this sound is pretty low, pretty mid-rangey. Let's try to add some harmonics. I'm going to do this via the distortion panel inside Bazzill, and it's a very powerful distortion. Let's select the distortion. The first thing I'm going to do though is actually reduce a lot of the low end by using the pre-tip filter, and then I'm going to push up the input. So we're basically clipping. So let me reduce the output. And now I'm going to use a post tilt. And now more high end. It's important to know that you can also use the output to create even more distortion. We have different types of distortions. Hard clip, class A, class B, so two tube amps instead of one. And we have rectify as well. The post filter can be used in guitar cabinet mode as well as a dual band shelf. And we have a delay as well, of course. Let's finish this off with the spring reverb. I'm going to lower the volume of the dry so we can just focus on the wet signal. I'm going to change the tonality. It's almost like applying a tip filter. We have a drive as well. We can change the tension of the strings. Or the wires, I should say. So we can use that to change the pitch of things. put the decay all the way down, mess around with the tension. That's very interesting. Now I'm gonna change the width. And let's move around with the shake. Alright, let's add some of the dry signal back in. Alright, so there we got our first patch with Bazzill. Nothing too complicated, but it's enough to make our feet sweat a little and get comfortable with the synthesizer. And later in this live stream, we're going to start looking at the MIDI functions down here, and we're also going to look at these tools over here, and a little bit more into the envelopes and also the tweaks and effects pages, because there's a very cool voice detuning. The mapping generator is also very cool, similar to the creation of your own oscillator inside Zebra. So let's hop over to Zebra now so we can cover FM in Zebra. And when we first load Zebra, we have just a regular oscillator. Let me see the live stream, see how you guys are doing. Let us know what country you guys are from. I'm really curious about seeing where you guys are based out of. Okay, so here we have the Zebra. So let's grab that oscillator, and of course let's set it to single mode. Let's also set this to let's go to the wave, and actually we can edit the FM over here. So let's set FM oscillator. Now what I'll do is grab the FM oscillator and change the wave on it. So if I click on here, I can set this to be sine tree, so just a sine wave. If I click on the editor, or even here, I can add more harmonics to this. Of course, I have to FM it by something. Let's mute this first oscillator for a second. Active. Actually, is it this guy? Let's set this as sine tree as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go into turn on back the oscillator. Let me mute the FM for a second. Just to show you what I've done here. So basically, what I've done in this editor is create a frequency wave. Just a wave via spectrum. So I can create a sine wave, for example, if I just basically mute everything. So I can press Alt, mute all these frequencies up here, and just set one. Right? Or if I drag this out, I can create something that sounds like a saw wave. Cool. I'm not going to get into the wavetable synthesis part because that's for the next live stream. However, if you add more bits and pieces right here, you can scroll through them and create a wavetable. Okay, so for now, let's just stick to basics, and I'm going to go back to the preset right here and select sine tree once again. So when I want to add more harmonics to this single only sine wave, I can just click right here. And delete any that I find to sound unharmonic. So those are kind of metallic. Oh. No, I'm trying to get rid of that little guy right here. Oh, there we go. And let's create another one. There you go. Okay, so now we're going to turn on the second oscillator, which is the FM. Activate it. And now we're going to use the FM coming from oscillator 1. Now we can edit this by an envelope. So let's set an envelope. Get an envelope 2. Okay, so now I can go to the slope and set it to slope. Basically, by adding more decay time, you're allowing the FM to hold a little bit longer, right? Maybe that's too much to create a piano, so we can drag this down. That's perhaps a bit more suitable. I do want to add a few more notes up here. Not that guy. Cool. So we can actually add more of a flavor to this if we go into our effects. Let's go global. Let's remove this. Let's add let's see. Should I stick with the delay or with the shaper? Let's go with the delay first. And set these 2 seconds. Alright, but let's add some MIDI because I'm horrible at playing this. So let's go ahead and press Control M to load up some MIDI inside FL Studio. And I'm about to ruin one of your favorite songs from, if you were from the 80s, I'm about to ruin one of your favorite songs. Alright. So let's set a loop portion right here on our file. Perhaps that's a little bit too much FM. And, you know, even we could add chords. So let's grab some chords from FL. So let's add some chords here. Let's do the major 7 on, let's say, let's do E minor. Let's grab a major 7. Copy paste these guys. Wow. It's pretty bad. I do have more piano chords later down, but I was just trying to make something new right now. Okay. Let's grab the bottom notes and just drag them all down. Now I'm going to press Alt-S inside FL Studio to create a little bit of strum for them, and I'm not going to make them go up and down like a guitar. I just keep it pretty simple. Although you can do that if you add a bit more harmonics on the Zebra oscillator. You can create more of a bass type of sound. Let me accept this. Double the top notes. All right, cool. So we got a basic understanding of setting up FM also in Zebra. Really basic though. We haven't really delved into creating up another track over here and setting this FM to over here. Yeah. So we're going to leave it at that for now. I'm going to have a very in-depth look at Zebra next live stream. Like I said, we're going to be going full-fledged wavetable synthesis on the next live stream. So let's go back to Bazzill now. And specifically, let me open up a project now. So we have this guy over here. Now that we feel a little bit more comfortable with FM and Bazzill, we can understand that changing the envelopes in FM and also the oscillators greatly affect the oscillator that we're hearing back. So by changing modulation on the modulation oscillator, we can get a really cool sounds that aren't too crazy hectic as we do like in other genres like in dubstep. We can create more of a piano type feel. But now we're going to go and try to create some acids, okay? So first of all, let's try to make a kick drum. So percussions with Bazzill. And that's actually quite simpler than you think. But there's a cool features that you can add with also FM, not just subtractive synthesis, but with FM inside Bazzill to create punchier drums than you can with typical subtractive synthesis. So let's go ahead and add a new Bazzill. Fate. So Bazzill. Drag this in here. So first of all, we gotta put in some MIDI. I can just copy the one that we have from earlier, which as you can see, it's pitched a little bit lower. Paste it into a new pattern. Now we're gonna put this as a sine wave. And what we're gonna do is grab this envelope 2, to modulate the pitch, like we usually would on any subtractive synth. To create a kick type of sound. Now the next thing I'm going to do is grab envelope 2 and bring the sustain down so that when the note ends, so does the sound right here. So I'm going to drag this note down a little bit. I'm going to increase the release a bit. So we're getting more of like a envelope typical of an 808. I'm gonna go into the tweaks and effects page. I'm gonna change the voicing on this to mono. Right? Now the next thing I'm gonna do is go back to the synth page, and I'm gonna do the cool FM trick where you can grab the envelope as well to modulate the frequency modulation. On your synth oscillator. If you grab a different envelope and apply that to that FM, you can start to create little clicky sounds on top, but we got to make sure that we align them though. And I typically find that it sounds better when I put this in negative. Okay, now let's send this, instead of the outputs, let's send it to the filter. And of course, 24 dB per octave out. Now we can change the pitch envelope. And also some of the FM. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is, instead of using the distortion from the tweaks and effects page like I did earlier, I'm going to go ahead and create distortion and harmonics using FM from this guy. So I'm going to grab the oscillator 2, send its output to the FM right here. But instead of, we're going to pitch this down. Or in this case, we're going to change the undertones of the oscillator 1. And we're going to lower the FM to fine. So we're just creating little ripples right here instead of creating huge changes like we did earlier. So now this sounds a little bit more like your regular distortion. So now if I add more sound wave over here, I can also add those harmonics into my other wave. Okay. So now I'm going to overdrive this into the filter. I'm going to apply that same envelope 2 to the pitch of my second oscillator and also the FM of it. And if I were to change the semitones on my second oscillator, I can create different types of distortion with it. Of course, I'm looking for very subtle changes when making drums. And the next thing I'm going to do is go back to the distortion. Try to make some more high end by using the tilt trick. Now I'm going to soften up the FM a bit. And distortion as well, because I think it might be too heavy. Let's change it to rectify, hard clip. And then we got a basic kick drum. If we wanted to add a click to it, we can use oscillator 3, modulate that by the white noise. So we're going to go to the FM. Now let me mute my main output here. Let's send the outputs of oscillator 3 to the LFO, the filter cutoff 2. And then let's play this back. Send the high pass to the output. The next thing I'm going to do is use envelope 4. Send that to filter right here. Actually, we're going to grab the output now and send it to the outputs of the first filter, because we can. And then we're going to route the outputs of that filter here. So now we got to add an envelope onto the main filter. So I'm going to add envelope 4, send it to this right here. Lower my sustain and my decay, and lower the filter cutoff. And we've got a basic kick drum right there. The kick drum I created over here is I spent quite a bit more time on. As you can see, it sounds a lot thicker. Especially the punch is very, very nice around the 100 to 200 hertz area. But I did spend quite a bit of time on this. The main differences here are, let's see, we're using the multiplex, and we're doing kind of what we did with the multiple envelopes, but we routed them to the multiplex. As you can see here, I send the multiplex, the envelope to the multiplex, then the multiplex sends both my oscillator 2 and my envelope 2 modulation to the one phase modulation source inside the oscillator 1. So let's go ahead and try that out. Let's go to pattern 4. So I'm going to remove this guy, send it to the multiplex, grab an output from this envelope, again send it to the multiplex, send the multiplex out to the FM. And let me see the settings on this guy. You see, we were doing negative and we were using coarse, so we're doing much more dramatic FM. And we're using multiply on the second oscillator. Now the multiply will change the pitch of an oscillator by multiplication, so it kind of works like this other oscillator, like the multiplier inside Sytrus. Let me show you guys it again, where you can multiply or divide the frequency. Right, so we can change octaves of things. So you see, if I divide this, it pitches it up. and we see there the basically the result changes to synths. Back to multiply. So that actually gives you a better punch, but now the low end is a bit controlled. So let's go ahead and change my volume envelope on this. Let me see quickly how it changes, because it was a pretty deep patch, like I mentioned. We even got the second filter involved as a bandpass. And we're actually using a resonant EQ, a resonant oscillator here. So it's quite a bit different. Actually, hold on. It's that guy. You can hear the rippling going to the low end here. Let me show you. There we go. There we go. We're getting closer. Let's play this back. There you go. So now we change the multiply by just tiny amounts. If we select shift, we can create like that effect from like old school hip hop where the kick drum like just changes the pitch as well. See that? You even see that sometimes in trap music today, where the envelope of the pitch changes. Not as drastic as this, obviously, but something much more subtle like that works really well. Let's send that up a octave to create some toms. Of course, now we got to get rid of that gliding. And we can change the semitones over here. Okay, and then we're gonna really use the ADSR now to decrease this, and then we're gonna grab the second, third oscillator, which is the second one we're using as a sound source. We're going to incorporate it again. We can even use the bandpass on this guy. And if we use a keyboard follow, we can create these really metallic sounding toms. Changing down a few semitones now. Let's pair them up with our drums, but let's do a reggaeton rhythm on this. Let's go like so. Whoa. Let's put this on the playlist and grab the kick drum. Yeah, so you can get some very strong fat drums inside Bazzill. Now, if we wanted to create a little bit more of a sequence, especially like a 3/3 style, like I do over here. It's actually very easy. We don't even have to use a filter because of the phase distortion on the oscillator. So let's go back to Bazzill. And of course, we can start either with a saw wave, square wave, like we would in a traditional 303 type of synthesizer. Or we can do something cooler. We can use this resonant 3. Check that out. And it basically allows us to shift from the sine wave-ish thing to a flatter kind of... let me slow down this frequency right here. It's a little bit flatter, stumpier type of wave. Now I can actually change the wave this is turning to if I change to res 1. And you can change the way these guys fade from each other here. We're going to use a cosine, and we're going to use the map that we see in the tweak generator. See here? As I move across, it's going to sound quite a bit different, especially if I use a different type of wave. So let's use a saw and a square to compare them. Where's the square? So we can go between these two different tones. So I'm going to go ahead and set that back to res. Like I said, I want to create a 3/3 sequence. Right, so I got this down. The thing is, now we got to modulate by something, right? Typically, what we do in a 303 is send the output to the filter and use the filter as a modulation source, right? With the resonance. However, we're not going to do that. We're just going to use this guy. Again, I'm going to set it to sine so we can fade from basic sine to having this right here. So you can see that already acts like having a filter and a resonance together. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to grab the sequencer, put it on my pitch, set it again to 50. And add some notes here. I'm going to send this to my FM as well. Actually, to the you can see the phase distortion and the FM. I can use this both to change different my pitches. So if I'm limited in how much I can pitch up with the sequencer and the semitones here, or if I want to pitch all the way down, while having notes that go pretty much very high, I can use both of these different modulation sources to alter the pitch. If I want to. Now, if I wanted to grab and create a second sequence, basically, I can send this over here. I can copy and paste this. And I can rotate between different sources right here. Now, if I wanted to create something a bit more drastic and modulate everything very quickly, I can make some pretty heavy modulations right here. Let's set this to be 48, so it's going to be 2 octaves higher. And then this is going to be 40. An octave, and then we'll send this to be 14, which is going to be 7. Okay, so now I can click on the second oscillator. And I can interpolate between the first oscillator, the first sequencer and the second sequencer. So I'm going to right click and select interpolate. And now every one of these sequences is different. So now I can use my rotate. And now they're 2 completely different, 8 different sequences, as you can see here. I can change the timing of these guys. Now, as soon as I add more gain here, we get some overdrive. Let's go back and add that phase distortion modulation here. Now I'm going to do a cool thing. I'm going to go to the multiplex, add that to the multiplex. I'm also going to grab the LFO, send it to the multiplex, and then I'm going to grab the multiplex and send this out. So I can use both the LFO and the sequencer to modulate my phase distortion. I'm going to set the LFO to be 2/1 bar. I can change the wave here. So if I want it to be a ramping up saw, I can send it all the way to the right. Not even cooler, I'm going to send this to the lag generator. I'm going to introduce some lag and some release to this so that we don't have that clicky sound at the beginning and at the end of the oscillation of the LFO. There you go, that sounds much more natural. Awesome. Okay, so let's now add the cliche delay. And I'm going to add a lot of wow factor, which is basically flutter. Some spring reverb. Cool. Let's see. Let's do a couple of different things. Let's add a white noise. We're going to try and create a hi-hat here. Let's add a white noise to the oscillator 4. Send this volume out to this third. Output, which is going to go to the cutoff of the second. Send that output. Yeah, this filter, and then let's see. Now you got to go to the third filter, which is over here. I'm gonna mute this guy for a second. So we need to trigger out the fourth envelope by something, which we're going to use envelope 3. Okay, so we got something coming out of oscillator 4. I'm going to try and trigger it. Oh, not with that guy, with this guy. So let's use model map 1. Not the reggaeton beat. Let's bring up the oscillator. I mean the panel right here. Press L to change my pattern. I believe that resonance coming from the filter itself. There we go. There we got a hi-hat. Now I just need to send the sequencer to somewhere. So let's send it over here. Come on. Why don't you want to... Oh, I'm like tripping. I should be sending it here. Okay, and then let's play it back now with... I don't know why it's not triggering via the envelope right now. What I'll do is I'll use the LFO2 as a trigger. So I'm going to set this all the way to the right. So it's a saw wave. Send it to my volume. And actually before that, I'm going to send it to my lag generator. From the lag generator, I'm going to send it to oscillator 4. Set LFO1 to be 16 notes. Or I can do quarter notes. Actually, I think I know why my envelope wasn't working now. Let's see. Oh, it's still not working. That's strange. I'm supposed to be able to edit or modulate envelope 3 or any of the envelopes by using one of the MIDI maps, the MM maps, which are the sequencer. But I'm not seeing it work for me right now. It's something I'm going to have to look into the manual and try to figure out. I'll update you guys on that. It should work. I don't know why it doesn't. I've seen it with other sequences. But for now, let's try to use the LFO and the lag generator. We also have an inverter over here. And let's see, inverter. Clean up the gate. There we go. Let's grab the oscillator 1 cutoff. Send it here. Run this through some distortion. I'm also going to use the LFO to modulate the filter 3. I'm going to choose the cutoff, and I'm going to set it to be modulated by LFO1 triangle. So far we use, let's see, we got one oscillator left, so you can add a kick drum to the sequence. So let's try to do this. And we also got one envelope as well. So I'm going to grab the envelope right here. And we're going to use a pitch envelope coming from, let's do envelope. We're running out of envelopes here. Oh, there's another one over here. So we got envelopes 3 over here and envelope 4. So I'm going to set this to snappy mode. I'm going to use it as a trigger. And I'm going to grab the, let's see, the pitch. Where can I modulate this from? Trying to find a way to add that envelope. Oh, it's over here. So if I grab, it's ramp 1 or ramp 2? Let's try ramp 1. Send it to the pitch as well. And of course, we got to send this to a filter. So let's send the output of this guy to filter 3. Filter 3's low pass to... Oh, we're running out of outputs. So what we're going to do now is send the outputs of the filter 2 and filter 1 out to the multiplex. Then I'm going to send the low pass 18 out from filter 4 to the multiplex and back out to my 1 output. So we heard briefly that wow, which was the supposed kick drum. So let's try to let's clean up this patch right here. Oof. Okay. Really quickly, just to only have the that sound. Oh, okay. Let's grab the ramp. It's set to go down really quickly. You can tell how quick here. So you can do 1/4 sync. Now I'm going to set the undertone for the oscillator 3 to be minus, I believe it's 14. Let me look at the manual real quick. The pitch is tuned from -1 or +1, 3, 7, and 15. So that's where our octaves are. So let's set this 15. That's too low, of course. Let's do -3. There we go. And we got some delay, so it's all right. Okay, let's play back everything together now. Of course, we could actually try to sequence this. I'm not getting a successful result, but I see there's plenty of patches on there that actually do this. Let me try to do this real quick. Set this yeah, I don't know why I can't get sound out of the modulation right there. I really don't know why if I'm using the mapping right there, but you should, in theory, like I mentioned earlier, grab one of these guys and be able to send it to the modulation mapping right here to trigger this envelope. Maybe I'm missing where it's supposed to go in. It might be here, but I'm not getting any results out of it. But for now, let's just make it one kick drum per sequence. We can add it via another Bazzill, but let's just do like that for now. So let's grab the ramp, send it to my volume right here. And actually, I can use ramp 2 in this case, so we can have a longer sustain. So ramp 2. And ooh. We got the gift that keeps on giving. We can actually make more kicks like this. Cool, awesome. All right, so keep that in mind. We can actually use the rest mode to rewind this. So let's actually sync this up. Wow, cool. So we can actually make a little tiny kick drum like this. Awesome. Let's add the ramp again, but to the fractalize. Set it to saw. I thought I would get more of a saw wave type of character, but it doesn't matter. Let's add the final sounds that we have, which are the 303. Lower the outputs of it. And the hi-hat. Now you can see my CPU is struggling a little bit. I'm going to set the multi-core. And I think that kick drum is off, so let's set this to all the way down. Actually, let me try using envelope 3 with the mod sequence and then route that to the envelope. Oh, that's a map too. All right, we'll just say goodbye to the kick drum. It's taking too much time. Okay, so so we got our hi-hat and our 303. Cool. And we can just add a kick drum that we had before. All right. And you have an ASIC track there for Bazzill. Of course, you can do many more things. I suggest you guys take a look through some of the patches and mess around with them yourselves. Let me look at some of the questions that you guys have on the live stream. Hey, what's up, David? How's it going? Hi, Benny. What's up, Lucas? And what's up, Skooks? I might be pronouncing that wrong. Hey, congrats on installing Bazzill. It's gonna be a trip for you, man. It is it is a trip for me. I'm still learning more about it because it's just such a crazy modular environment. It almost doesn't feel like it because you don't get those type of tones that you usually expect out of modular synthesis, because it has FM and it has phase distortion. It has everything that involves like short of wavetable synthesis. So it's very crazy. What's up, Jair? Over here. Let me know if you guys have any questions. What's up, Erdem Chan? You're from Turkey. Awesome. What time is it in Turkey? I'm learning about modular. I'm still getting my feet wet, David. I'm not no expert. The only thing I consider myself an expert on is the virus. But this is awesome. Also, Hive. I really love Hive. Hive is. Oof. I'm so excited for the next live stream because of Hive. But this was a really such a pleasure to work with, because I'm usually not used to working with modular synthesizers, except when I have a lot of time to do sound design, because usually you expect them to be a little bit more cumbersome to work with, except Bazzill is so easy to work with. Let me show you guys a little demo idea I had with it, using some presets and one sound that I made myself. But this came in like 4 or 5 minutes time. Shout out to you, man, for Erdem Chan, for being here with us at almost 11 time your time, man. I really appreciate that. So here's a little demo I had just using Bazzill presets, and I maybe slightly tweaked some of them and created one, which it's like a show me love bass. I can show you guys how to make that as well. But here we go. Let's play this back. Let's turn off reference from my output. Actually, this is slower. This should be a bit faster. It should be around 165 because it was drum and bass. Set it up right there. So here's that drum pattern I was telling you guys earlier about that actually uses the envelopes properly. I haven't figured out how to do that quite yet, but I'll make sure to call that out probably by next live stream. So this is by, let me see, patches by Livian. I can't pronounce your last name, man. Sorry. Du Solaire. But yeah, it's such a lovely preset. I'm not even sure he's using a sequencer for this. Oh no, I'm on the wrong patch. Hold on. Should be this one. Yeah, it's this guy. There you go. This is it. Yeah, he knows how to do his setup properly. So let's look at that real quick. We got this going to the lag generator, this going to the lag generator as well. And then somewhere in here, he's using the mod or from FM. I don't know. I have to find someone's email and ask them how do they do it. I read the manual, but I still don't fully understand that setting yet. But I understand the synthesis part of this very, very much so now. The little pluck thing that I made. Let's see. It's super simple. Let's clone this. It's using the phase distortion of the, I believe, of the resonance. Yeah, of the resonance waves, and then doing a little bit of FM. Let's break it down. And let me show you guys the strings here. Yeah, the song was much better at 165. It sounds quite weird to slow down, but that little riff right there sounds really good when you slow it down though. Watch. Let's slow this to 125. And put a kick drum under it. That's really, really simple, but it sounds really, really good. It actually sounds like a lot of those like Dutch house or hard house songs that are like, they have this really weird like specific rhythm, but they work really well when you're like in a crowd environment, because it's like really sing-alongy. Yeah. So let's actually show that from scratch. So let's keep the kick drum in there. And let's cut this guy into this other Bazzill. Let's reset Bazzill. So straight up, first thing I did was I changed the saw to be a resonant frequency or resonant oscillator. And the saw could just be turned into, sine waves just by changing the phase distortion, or you can do very few harmonics like this, which would work similarly to using just the resonance. Pretty much the same thing, but I think the resonance has a slightly more high end, whereas if you grab the saw wave, it cuts off a little bit quicker. It's kind of strange, but I mean, it is what it is. So that's what I chose. Of course, I'm setting it to the filter cutoff, and then I think because there was a lot of low-end noise when I created this sound, I eventually used the second filter. But for now, let's keep it simple. And then I'm using oscillator 2, which was also in one of the resonant modes. I'm going to pick something different though, resonant 2. Send it to my FM. And let's start playing this back. I'm going to use the second envelope to modulate the FM. So now you get like a clicky sound. And it's weird because usually I'd expect the FM, when I push it up with other synthesizers, to pitch up. Instead it's pitching from down to up. Let me slow it down. So that's kind of weird for me, but just flip it the other way. So you get that a little bit of more of a clicky mallet type of sound. And then the next thing I did was, I believe I changed the... I also might have done something with the phase distortion. Let's check the original patch real quick. Yeah, I did do something with the phase distortion. And I actually kept this other waveform originally in the saw, but it's a sine wave. So yeah, you see, there is a purpose for every waveform there. So let's go back to saw because the saw, like as I mentioned earlier, it has a cleaner sound to me. Go back to the original patch. And we're sending this envelope to the frequency modulation all the way up though. And we're actually leaving it somewhere here. It's kind of strange. But then we're also doing the volume envelope so that this is only affecting the beginning, and then it quiets down. And then we leave it also on the phase distortion. So let's go ahead and do that. Now this is very important right here. Since right now the FM is sustained, it's going to sound much different to when I'm actually just modulating it by an envelope. And I believe I should have lowered the octave of it with semitones. Maybe I just completely didn't do that. But let's push the FM all the way up. So you can already start seeing that some of the harmonics down here are, I don't want them. If I were to pitch this up even higher, you'd hear more of that low end. Let me show you. So now I'm going to send the filter output to a second filter. I'm going to set this to high pass, send it to my output. So now I get rid of those low frequencies that I don't want. Oh, I'm modulating the wrong guy. It's strange because now the patch is basically the same, but it sounds completely different. Let's go. Hold up. Let's go back to this guy. Paste the MIDI over. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, like you got all the cables basically in the same spot. Let me see. Wait. Let's see. Let's push this guy all the way up here. And then look at okay. Yeah, the cables are basically going the same way. Oh, here we go. I think. Hold on. Wrong guy. This is the one difficult part about using the same synth in the same project. You don't know which one's which. Unless you save the preset, you know, and you look at it, get it, and it shows you. But it's pretty much the same patch now. I'm having a hard time finding the difference. Oh, the high pass is first engaged here, then over here, but that shouldn't have that big of a difference. Oh, the PM is set to fine over here. Okay, that's going to make a world of a difference. Okay, let's see. Let's go back. There we go. Because now instead of destroying the whole sound, I'm just doing some very simple fine modulation by a few cents. I can bring this down. But notice just one parameter change and destroys your whole sound. Again, that's because the way the FM works in these different modes keeps it right here with the fine to just 50 cents up and down. In the medium, we got many more notes, and coarse is the most aggressive of all the FM types here. So even if we only try to put just one tiny bit of coarse, look at that right there. It's still much more aggressive than just using the regular fine all the way up. So now essentially, if you see right there, our oscillator is pitching up and down using this other oscillator over here. So if I use the second oscillator, I can change the tonality of this guy. I'm gonna send it to undertone to go down in pitch. Again, 1 is 1 octave. 3 is 2 octaves. I believe 7 is 3rd octave, and then 15 is the next like lower octave. So there you go. You have a lo-fi organ now. That sounds more like a hard style sound, and then let's do this one. That one, the pitching is quicker, but you can still hear it. Same with that one. And then 1 octave. And then the same frequencies are very unnoticeable. Even if I were to modify this by a few cents. And it'd be like loosening the strings up on the piano. Now, I haven't talked about the voicing here, but I can add stacks here too. So now I can add detunement. If I press shift, I can be very fine with it. And of course, to finish up the patch, a little bit of string reverb. Add lots of width. Change the tension and the shake. Now I'm pretty sure you can use some of these amps with the lag generators. Send them out to where they were originally supposed to be modulating to get a smoother sound. That's awesome. That's really cool. So now instead of sounding like the piano like the original one does, we got a little bit more of a trumpet going. using the filters, you can create some overdrive. So if I think I covered this with Diva, but you can do this here too as well, because unlike the oscillators, the filters are analog models. So you can actually use the resonance trick and boost up the low end right here. So we're using a high pass filter and setting it lower than the actual beginning of the note. The resonance is not actually picking up any harmonics, but it's creating a little peak, like if you can see right here. See that peak? Instead of having it there in the audible range, if I bring it down below where you can't hear anything yet, and actually I can map it to key follow as well. I can add some low end back in there. I'm gonna add that envelope to the filter cutoff. And we get that show me love type of sound that we did with the original patch. Let's go back to the original patch. Yeah, except the original patch is much cleaner because I spent quite a bit of time on it. All right, let me see if you guys have more questions here. What do I use personally for FM in my music? Well, for growls, I actually have one of my first tutorials I ever did, which was back like in 2015 or 2016. I can't remember, but one of the first sounds I ever made with FM was this. And I love it because it's quite complex, but I mean, I didn't know exactly what was going on. I just knew that I was changing pitch and throughout time, so that's all pretty much new, but I was able to create some pretty cool sounds. Let me see. So, like I said, for me, FM is for wubs. For I can do basses with FM. I really like FM basses actually, and I actually use a Sytrus for most of my projects. If I open up basically any song, I'm actually using Sytrus for my basses simply because I can just click right here. I have a sine wave. And I have some overtones there now. So if I pitch this down with the multiplier, and pitch this other guy even lower with the multiplier, half of what the other note is. I get some really rich tones. So I think that would be really easy to do with something like Zebra. And the reason why I keep bringing Sytrus up is because it's actually the first synthesizer I learned how to use. So considering it's an FM synth, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, I was literally one of like this patch right here was one of the first things I ever made. And I was just trying to create like a Transformers type of sound. Yeah, but I mean, it's really simple. It's only two operators modulating one operator. And I had a ton of reverb because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. But yeah, I still think it's cool. Nowadays I do crazier things with it though. You can do kick drums. Let me pitch it up a little bit higher. And actually, the kick drums I got out of Bazzill are fantastic. But these were just some of the first patches I ever made. Let's see, Neuro. So I don't think I'm even using an LFO for this. I just set the envelope to keep turning itself on. I think, via the filter? Yeah. So the cool thing about Sytrus is you can add more points right here. Whoa. Which I think it's easier to do with Bazzill now, because this is kind of annoying to have to dig into things, and with Bazzill, it's literally everything on one page. Sounds like some samba. What else? Oh, this one's really cool. I don't remember if it was pitch higher though. As you can tell, I clearly didn't know what I was doing at the time, because these are all like super high pitched, and I had like really like shitty Logitech speakers. Oops, sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but I had really bad Logitech speakers. So I honestly didn't know what I was doing. But there you go. Let's see. Yeah, so those were the type of things I used to do with FM, and I still do a lot of it. There's a whole song I did I did a remix of my friend's song, and basically there's this thing where Skrillex did a song, the Humble remix, which everyone claimed that he ripped Medicine off. Which, I mean, the song is such a basic thing, like it's only 3 chords, and you know, with dubstep basses, they all sound pretty similar. So then I went ahead and I tried to recreate the whole thing with Sytrus, and then I used it for a remix for another remix I was asked to do. So I mean, it's a fantastic way to make music. Now I'm getting more used to it again with via other synthesizers, because like I said, I use it typically for basses and for those type of sounds. But lately I've been getting more into it because it's not as aggressive as I used to use it with when I use the Virus TI, or when I use Zebra or Bazzill in this case. So the sounds are just, I think they're just more musical, more palatable, and they don't sound like a Tyrannosaurus Rex like I was trying to do, or like a robot. So something like this is something I would actually use in one of my songs. Let me go to the kick drum that I made. Kick, no. Bazzill. Let's see. Go to my patches, user. You see, it's not that much patches that I made. Usually, to be honest, when I make music for my music, or patches for my music, I typically don't save anything, which is a terrible thing to do, but like actually making a preset pack is like difficult, because I typically just make sounds from scratches now. I used to, like I said, I used to save patches all the time with Sytrus, and when I used to start making music, but now that I have a pretty good strong hold on synthesis, I typically don't make patches anymore, or I mean save them. I make patches, but I just don't like to save them. So if I were to show you my template for music, it's literally loaded with synthesizers that are just set up with a saw wave. That's it. So it seems kind of daunting, but that's how I like to make most of my music. Okay, let's go back to Bazzill. Oh, I also made this thing. I'm also not the best keyboard player, as you guys can see in my live streams, but since I'm making electronic music, for the most part, that's not a factor. So I can get away with making pretty unnatural sounds. But yeah. For example, this guy is using... Let's see, that trick again with the distortion. And then... You turn multi-core on for this. So now I can actually use it for pads, whereas before I completely didn't understand that as well. And I think if I don't have my virus turned on right now. Well, there you go. That's one type of sound I would actually use to make back in the day, but I still kind of make these type of sounds sometimes. I would definitely be using FM to create risers of that nature, because they sound so distorted and so gnarly without actually having to use, well, this guy uses a lot of distortion, but if I were to take it off, that sound, that distorted sound, those very, it's not warm, but it's cutthroat. It's like grabbing you from the throat and saying, "Hey, I'm here." It's not soft, you know. It's not like the organ pianos. So it's saying, "Danger, I'm coming for you." So yeah, those were the type of sounds I used to make with FM, but I'll still make them once in a while now. Let's see, we got dark sitar. I believe someone asked how to make glaze type of sounds in the group, and I try to make this. So I'm gonna turn this into a tutorial later down the road. So how to make more glazy type of sounds. And of course, there's this one that I made. I really like this preset. Yeah. There's another riser effect. Sounds kind of weird. And of course, there's I like to make kick drums as well. I feel like FM really suits itself for making percussions. I should have talked about that more in this class, but I completely forgot to add it when I was writing it out. But you can make really cool percussions with FM as well. I mean, like high-end percussions, not the low percussions, because I cover that pretty well. And I try to cover the low percussions because they're basically creating low percussion will allow you to create high percussions, and it'll also allow you to create plucks. So that's something that I like to cover in most of my classes. Let's go back to this guy. Let's go to pattern. Of course, this pitches down a little bit. And try this out, because FL doesn't read that as MIDI, it reads it as a trigger data. So here's another kick drum that I made with this. Eventually, I had a 808 as well. really nice. If I were to do just a hip hop rhythm. Dum dum. Dum dum dum. Just a bit quiet though. The cool thing is you can pitch these up now, right? So you can actually treat them like real 808s. Instead of having to load up a sampler and load up your sample in there and then do pitch gliding and all that, you can do that all within your synth. And then I did this thing. Notice how it's polyphonic, so that's kind of funny. Let's send this up. But yeah, I typically use FM to make aggressiver sounds, but lately I've been getting more into mellow stuff. And actually, going back to Repro can actually do FM as well, and so can Repro 5. So if I grab, let's botch your favorite song from the 80s. I don't know. I wasn't around in the 80s, so I don't know how big this song was, but I just know that it's in a lot of movies. And oh snap! No. Copy, paste. Oh no. I think it might be better if I start up a new project. Let me open a new guy. Club Basic. Because Repro can also do FM, and Diva can do ring modulation. But I really wanted to focus on Bazzill today. So I only spoke about Bazzill. And Control M to open up your MIDI. And let's create a region. So if I were to grab that wave and lower the mixture on oscillator B, I can use oscillator B to FM frequency A. So actually when I use my virus, I typically do this, but with white noise. So I'll get like let's say we got filter envelope. I don't want to use a filter envelope here. I think I can do that with Repro, where I can Repro 1, where I can select where the oscillator or the mod LFO is going to. Oh, but I can't send it to the. Huh. I don't think I can send it to the pitch. It's kind of weird. But here's the deal. So I can create like these little ripple sounds. And then I set the glide. I'm going to speed this up to 150 to make it like hardstyle. let's see, where's the... Trying to find the glide for... Like Portamento though, but... I guess this doesn't have it. Like, I know it has the glide thing, but I have to make the notes like drag onto each other, and I don't want to do that. So I can do something like this. Oh, I have to set the voices to 1? Do I? I think I do. So now check this out. I'm going to modulate the filter by also that wave. So you can create like, instead of straight up FM tones, you can create like, I feel it's more like a, I kind of found a hard way to describe it, but it's like a melancholic feeling in your leads when you're actually doing FM on them. Watch. I mean, this version of the track, you know, it's pretty sure you guys already know what track it is, but I basically turn it to be the opposite. Instead of being happy, it's like kind of melancholic. But when you add the voice mod here on the oscillator, you can change the tone and how it feels. You can also set this to low frequency. And basically, you're creating like a pseudo vibrato. Let's add both this, the triangle and the square. Let's put the delay to be in echo mode, and then also put the modulation to max, and put the timing to be sync in 1/4 notes. And let's test it out. Maybe that's a bit too much, but you guys get what I'm saying though. It's now it's auto sync, but yeah, to me it provides different emotions to the music once you start to apply it a lot more lightly instead of the very aggressive nature I used to use. Well, Bazzill is much more distorted. However, there should be a way to do this type of thing in Bazzill without actually even using a filter or the FM, quote unquote. I'm pretty sure you can just use the let's see, where is the PM course? No. It's the phase distortion. So we set this to square wave. And we get the LFO, send it here. And then I was also applying it to the filter cutoff on the other patch. Oh, not like that though. As a modulator, not as a source. And then low pass 20, actually 412 because the oh, I just put the glide way too much. And of course, we're gonna pitch this up because by default it's 1 octave lower. I don't want to use the whoa factor out of delay. And we get that same effect without the actual like distortion that you actually do get from the FM over here. I mean, not exactly this one, but the version we're using earlier where we actually were using this right here. And of course, you can get that same result by doing regular FM inside of Bazzill. So let's cancel out the LFO, and instead we'll use the LFO to modulate the pitch of this guy, or I mean the oscillator. But notice how much more melancholic it sounds. I'm guessing it's because of the timbre that the FM creates. Sometimes it doesn't really use the right overtones. It creates like some inharmonic sound, so it kind of sounds kind of sad. Alright guys, I'm gonna have to end the live stream now because it's been 2.5 hours, so we went over 30 minutes. But I think it's good because we covered quite a bit of things regarding FM and Bazzill, which I don't think there's enough resources out there for Bazzill. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to let you guys know to join our Facebook group, and also that we have more live streams coming up. So let me show you the schedule that we have for the upcoming live streams. There we go. So you have the next month's live stream being wavetable synthesis and UHI effects. So June 4th, June 11th, and again we're going to be covering 1 hour and 15 minutes of class, and we're going to be doing at least 30 minutes of open Q&A. We might be open to a little bit longer Q&A, just like we did here, depending on how many questions we have coming and how important those questions are, because we had some really important questions this time. And again, we're going to be covering this at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So 11 a.m. Pacific, and I don't know the time in Germany, but 2 p.m. Eastern Time, okay? Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com, /Music Marketing TV. And then also join our UHI users group. Let me link that to the actual chat right now. So let me open up Facebook, and I'll send you guys the link to this. Yep. So I should leave it in the chat now. Yeah, I'm gonna do a class on wavetables. I'm gonna create wavetables, and we're gonna import them into Zebra and into Hive. So I covered the Hive thing before, but I've gotten much better at creating wavetables, and I'm actually creating packs for both Hive and a few other wavetable synthesis plugins now because I'm much better at them. We're also going to be using editors to create those wavetables. So we're not just going to be looking at like Hive itself as a synthesizer, but we're going to be looking at the steps it takes to create an actual proper wavetable, which is very cool. Okay. And with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, for staying tuned in. Once again, I'm Kevin Ochoa with Music Marketing TV, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.